everyone, and welcome to the Popcorn Bucket List, the podcast that keeps your movie bucket list up to date because those 1,000 movies to see before you die list are just too daunting. I'm your host and the ghost haunting your every waking moment, Gracie, and with me is Darrell, the genetically mutated mad scientist, and Sarah, who was looking for her human sacrifice. That was a tongue twister. How are y'all?
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Oh, I didn't know if I was going to make it through genetically mutated mad scientist. I
Cool. I'm trying to
really
make it
wasn't
as complicated as possible.
So if you couldn't tell, be afraid, be very afraid, because this week we are celebrating the spookiest of movies in the spookiest of months. That's right, we're talking horror movies, quickened heart rate, agitation, and the fight or flight response. These feelings are what audiences seek when they buy tickets to horror movies. But for someone who celebrates her love of horror every day, the topic was incredibly hard to narrow down for just one podcast episode. So bear with me, okay, guys? It's very traumatic. So this week we're gonna focus on our favorite horror subgenre. That helped me a little bit. Rather than picking individual films, we'll discuss the types of horror movies that have left the strongest impressions on us, which I think is the easiest way for me to go about this. I don't know about you guys. I feel like that's how we're gonna at least be able to keep it to at least an hour and 10 minutes long conversation. So to begin, let's start off with what is a horror film?
I can tell you what I think a horror movie is. I guess
Okay.
a horror movie is something that it's a story that is supposed to invite fear into the audience. It's supposed to make you either concerned for typically the character's well-being, but also it can be something that makes you concerned for your own well-being. Because sometimes it's not necessarily about you know, oh, you're so afraid for this one character. It's like you're afraid because like, what if this happens in real life? Oh my god, this is horrifying. I don't like this. Um, it's supposed to elicit a more extreme reaction in you than say like a normal drama or like even a comedy. It's supposed to elicit something that's really supposed to stick with you for a long time. I think. I guess that's how I would define a horror film.
Sarah, you want to take a crack at it?
Yeah, I think some of the best horror movies not only like scare you and like, act upon that fright response, but also just like make you feel very uneasy and like,
The fight or flight response, I think.
yeah.
So according to the Britannica, a horror film is calculated to cause intense repugnance, fear, or dread, which I love that. That's a cool.
I love the
Repugnance
word
is a great
repugnance.
word. Horror films may incorporate incidents of physical violence and psychological terror. They may be studies of deformed, disturbed, psychotic, or evil characters, stories of terrifying monsters or malevolent animals, or mystery thrillers that use atmosphere to build suspense. Um, and I think that is a very broad, but it works because I find that horror films, there are so many different subgenres, and that definition definitely encompasses the entirety of horror films, because nowadays what we classify horror might not have like what we classify as horror would be downright like unheard of when the genre was you know originating, and that was like when film was just starting out. I mean, George Méliès, he did, I think it's like the Haunting of the Castle or something like that. It's super easy. It's got a man turning into a bat. It's got witches. It's got skeletons dancing. It's super like tropey, very original. I think that was like 1890 something. I don't know. I can't give you the right date. But so that's what a horror film would have been at the time. And then you go on to Frankenstein, Dracula, things that we watched as kids growing up and thought were silly. You've even got like Abbott and Costello, Meet the Mummy and things like that that definitely get more cheesy as you go. And even, movies that were made 20 years ago, which early 2000s, you know, which is crazy to think because I said it about to talk about the 80s and then I went, nope, that's the early 2000s. But even looking at early 2000s movies, they're super cheesy. The horror films that were coming out in early 2000s are not, I mean, they're classic, don't get me wrong, and it's crazy to me that I'm going to call Final Destination a classic, but like it's a very specific time period of horror, and I think that that's why I like horror, is because it's ever changing and they're always evolving to try and up their game. That's why I like horror.
Yeah, they kind of like, it hits different every like generation. Every decade has its like, its new style of horror, or it's a new spin on something that's old. So
Yeah.
it's always changing, and that's the cool thing about the genre.
And I love watching new movies that hint at old movies too. Like I think that is why the genre works, is because it can pay homage to, its, predecessors, but still not be like cheesy in that way. Like it can still be like moving forward, I guess. But why do like normal people like horror films? Because I wouldn't class them not normal. No. I just like horror films a lot more than I think the average Joe and or Jane or whatever you want me to call. But in my thesis, I said to justify the reasoning of why I wrote my thesis, because anybody who doesn't know me, my degree was in communications, and I had to really justify why I wanted to talk about horror films in a communications department. So I said horror films are impactful to cinema audiences because audiences will always return to be scared again. Horror movies are not always blockbuster hits, but they still pull in record numbers and have greatly influenced many lives. Scientifically speaking, audiences seek the feeling of fear for a cathartic effect. The fear gives audiences a release to feel joy. Basically, withholding joy. Does that make sense? Like you're in suspense too long and you're waiting for that moment to just take a breath. These feelings are why audiences of horror films tend to be younger, because teenagers and 20-somethings are thrill seekers, whereas adults tend to be satisfied with the horrors of real life. Which I think is interesting because it is true. Horror tends to be targeted towards a younger audience, and I definitely would feel like I go seek out horror films now, but when I was a kid, I just went and saw whatever, horror film was out. It didn't matter. Now I feel like it's like I'm targeting, oh, I need to see this, I need to see this, and I just kind of work my way down a list. Whereas like I just went whatever horror film was out on the Friday night, like, because that's what I wanted to do at 16, was be scared with a bunch of my friends and, giggling and things like that, about jumping up and down and being afraid of things.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because like when you said that it's like it's more for younger audiences. Whenever you watch a horror movie and there's a scene where somebody is going to go see a movie, it's always like it's always young people going to go see, like, we're gonna go check out this horror film. Like, oh, don't do that, you're scaring me, kind of thing. And everybody dies or something. But it's always like,
yeah, it's always like, stop, you're scaring me.
It's always like young teenagers or like young 20-somethings. So like even in horror movies, like, I mean, everybody in the horror movies are always the younger people a lot of the time anyway. Even whether they're, the ones being killed, just the ones who are going to go see movies within the movies. So it's just kind of interesting how the medium reflects its audience constantly. So
yeah, like all three of the films that I was going to talk about have teenagers as like the main character of the film.
Interesting.
Yeah, a lot of
that's
mine
a
do
cool
too.
Yeah, I tend to gravitate towards women-led horror films, but I think that's just ingrained in me now. um why do you guys like horror? I guess I'd love to know that.
I mean, I guess I like horror movies. I think growing up, I was never a huge fan of horror movies. I was kind of scared of like horror movies because like I didn't like zombies. Zombies scared the hell out of me and terrifying. Nowadays it's like, yes, please, zombies. I love
Give me
it.
more zombies, please.
Yeah, but I don't know. I think I just like being. I mean, like a lot of people who horror, I like being scared. But horror movies don't necessarily scare me. It's just that I like being seen something. I like being shown something that I can't see elsewhere. I like being able to see like really weird stuff, and that's one thing I love about especially modern horror. Like modern horror and like 80s horror shows you like the weirdest, most bizarre stuff, and I love seeing that. Like I like playing horror video games because you're a part of it. You're literally controlling the characters in these crazy, horrifying situations. So I think for me, it's just being able to see something that is like different, weird, a little perverse, and it's like the socially acceptable way of being able to look at that kind of stuff
Mm-hmm.
and to enjoy it without feeling like you're some crazy person. So I don't know. Horror movies make me feel like I'm not the crazy person, I guess.
Sarah, what about you?
I was definitely raised on horror movies. My mom was obsessed from the get-go. Like I watched Supernatural with her as it aired. So I was in like fifth grade,
Uh,
and that first season is pretty terrifying when you go back and watch it. But um, and yeah, she's really into vampire films, so that was like probably some of my favorites growing up. But I think as I've come to like watch horror more, I think I really appreciate how a horror movie makes you pay attention more so than a lot of other types of movies, because you're always trying to like figure out why or solve something. Like even if it's not a mystery, it's just there's always something that it's like, okay, but why is this happening? What is doing this? And so you're just like absorbing every moment of it. And I think that's like especially fun for like, more psychological and like slow burn horror movies, which are the ones I tend to gravitate to nowadays.
I don't know why I like horror, because I had to really think about this like while you guys were talking about it. I was like, well, I like Sarah, I was raised on horror. My mom probably showed me like Dracula and Frankenstein, and I do remember there being a sleepover or two with friends, and we watched Dracula, and I remember a mom not being too exactly happy about my mom showing her kid Dracula. Not that's a bad thing. It just I remember that happening, and I remember going, why? Like it's not that scary. Like it's not anything, to be afraid of. But I think to me I associate it with like happiness. I don't know. I always have liked October. It's my birthday. Halloween's my favorite holiday. And so to me, horror was just an extension of myself. I grew up wanting to be, Sigourney Weaver and Alien, and I wanted to be, Jodie Foster in Silence of the Lambs. Like I wanted to be a detective. I wanted to do all the like fun stuff. And then somewhere in high school, I think it really clicked with me. Insidious was a film, and it was the film that made me go, I want to work in some capacity on horror films, and which people always found baffling because a lot of people who work in film, horror is their like gateway to get into film.
yeah.
and a lot of people do a horror film to fund their next project, or they, do like horror film festivals, because you don't go to like, there's no comedy film festivals. I mean, there are, but they're not like, local comedy film festivals, like
Yeah.
you can't do that, or a drama film festival. Like there's not one every year. You can't count on that. Whereas like horror, there's always some film festival going on, so for people who were into film, it was an easy gateway. But for me, that was what I wanted to do. I liked the idea that it was an ever evolving challenge to make people afraid. And I think that's cool. I don't know why I think that's cool. I think it's also like I like to be afraid. Like I like the idea of being unsettled. Like movies that I don't even consider scary now, I remember seeing them for the first time, and I'm thinking of Disturbia, which is a remake of Rear Window, which makes sense of why I probably liked it because I love Rear Window. But Disturbia, I remember seeing that with, people in high school or elementary school, I can't remember. And no, high school, I don't know. And I remember coming home and being terrified of my neighbor. And like that irrational fear, it's just sweet old lady. She's so sweet. But I remember coming home and going, I don't know my neighbor. They could be a mass murderer and I don't know. And to me, that like feeling of, even though it's totally unjustified, but there's that inkling in the back of my brain, that makes a horror movie worth it. And I think that's probably why I picked the subgenre I did, because to me, that's what I like look for, like is that there's no limit with horror. You can go as fantastical as you want and go as crazy as you want. Horror can be a musical, horror can be a comedy, horror, like there's no there's no limitations to horror. And I think that's probably why to me it's my favorite, because I can go in any subgenre and be satisfied. So yeah, on that note of my heartfelt ode to horror, I mean I could talk about it forever, but why don't someone else take over and tell us about y'all's favorite subgenre? Let's go.
I can go.
All right. Yeah, I'll let you go first this time.
All right. So, I'm going with the satanic occult. And specifically, all of my movies have to do with isolation and loneliness, which I feel like go kind of hand in hand with, demonic possession. They're always looking for someone who's like very vulnerable and easy to like take control of in that sense. And a lot of like these movies, it's like, is it really the devil or is this person just crazy? Which is also another fun layer to all of them. So satanic films is a subgenre of horror, and it involves the devil as a concept or a character. And common themes include the Antichrist, demonic possession, exorcism, and witchcraft. So the first movie that I want to talk about, I think, is I'm the only person today here that has seen this movie. It's The Black Coat's Daughter from 2005. It was written and directed by Oz Perkins, and my fun fact there is that he's the son of Anthony Perkins, aka Norman Bates.
Which just made me want to watch the movie. So there you
go. Yeah, he wrote and directed Black Coat's Daughter, and I saw an interview with him, and he said that he wanted to make a sad movie in the guise of a horror film. And it is a very lonely movie. It's got Kieran Shipka, I think is how you say her name, from The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. And it's got Emma Roberts in it. And it's a wild ride. It's very, very much a slow burn. Like you're just like kind of waiting, and there's like a lot of little hints and stuff. I think it's really brilliant in its isolation and how it toys with the main character, Kat. She's at a boarding school, like religious boarding school, and her and one other girl are left behind for Christmas break. She stays behind because her parents haven't shown up yet, and the other girl stays behind because she intentionally told her parents that Christmas break was a week later so that she could sneak out to see her boyfriend.
Classic.
Yeah. And it takes such like a crazy turn once Kat's character just starts hearing things from the devil, and it goes between them and another character named Joan, which is Emma Roberts. And it's like one of those movies where like the two stories just start to like weave together. And I don't want to like spoil too much of it, but it's very good and it takes a while to get there, but it's like really worth it. But like one of the like craziest things that I've ever seen like in a like possession movie or like something was, this isn't too much of a whatever, but she's getting exercise towards the end of the film, and there's like a priest throwing holy water at her, and she's like, he's like saying all this stuff, and like she floats off the table and then falls, and she like looks over to the side and she sees like the silhouette of like Satan, and she says, "Don't leave me." And then he like goes away. Like it was so weird, like you almost felt sad about it, like the loneliness was just so like pungent and like deep. It was,
You
yeah,
gave me
it's a
chills.
really
Yeah, that's interesting. I want to see
it's
this.
it's very like, yeah, I'd never heard of it. A friend was like, we should watch this, and I was like, great. And I was like, whoa, like it's very, I think it's really beautiful. Like it is very much a story about loneliness that is kind of just brought forward with like satanic possession, and how that like it really does like tell a really cool story in it. But yeah, I highly recommend that movie. I think a lot of people have never heard of it that I've told about it, but
Mhm. I've seen it on Netflix. I've definitely seen the title. So
I've
I can
never heard of
picture
it.
the Netflix icon. So
yeah, yeah,
that one's a hard one because we definitely haven't seen that one. So
yeah,
it's not like
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
here.
Nothing to
It
say
does
about it.
make me want to talk about a film I just watched called The Lodge. And it's got the kid from It in it, the main kid, um, Bill Denenbro in the new It.
Oh, okay.
And there's a little girl in it who I believe is in the new Eternals movie. And I don't know their names. Don't ask me their names at the moment. But The Lodge, it whew, that's an isolation one. That one, it's a slow burn. But the first 2 minutes of that movie, or first 3 or 4 minutes of that movie, kick you in the gut, and then it's a burn. Just stop, full stop. And then once you figure out what's going on, you're just like, I'm on a wild ride and I wasn't ready for this. Like, and I think that's why I like a horror film is just like a roller coaster, there's like that downhill, like scream, and then there's the slow uptake of, the click, 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 click. You gotta wait.
Mhm.
So, but yeah, definitely recommend the watch to you guys because I think you would like that, especially Sarah, if this is your favorite. So it's got a cult vibe to it. So
Nice.
Yeah, more sad occult movies. That sounds
Yes.
great.
Yes.
I just love
Yes.
this like
Give
new
me.
subgenre is sad.
Sad occult movies.
occult.
Well, what are
Yeah.
some of your other ones?
I think another great one that deals pretty heavily with isolation is The Witch.
Ooh.
I love The Witch, and just like that introduction of him like just saying like, I don't vibe this, how y'all are throwing down this religious stuff, and me and my family are leaving. And so like he really screws over everyone in his entire family.
That
And it's
actor
another one of
is
those like
a joy to watch. Oh my God, sorry.
Yeah.
Just had to throw it. I love him. Love him. Oh, he was the
yeah, it's
Green
another
Knight
one
in
of
the new
those
movie.
oh
Yeah, he was
Yeah, that's right.
was the Green Knight. Yeah.
Green Knight
yeah.
in
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
So
yeah,
He's also in Harry Potter, but we don't need to talk about that.
But yeah, it's another one of those movies where the isolation of bringing his family away from, their community has left room for the devil to creep in. And there's a lot of like very interesting like subtexts in that movie that I think are like really fun, and the way that it's like, I know it takes place like when the witch scare was like just kind of starting. It was well before the Salem witch trials, like, but like it was when that kind of scare started. And yeah, some of the like just imagery in that movie is insane. Like when you think like the mom is like breastfeeding the baby and she's just letting like a crow eat at her, and like there's like the symbolism of like her killing her mom and then like bathing in her blood, and like it's probably the most witchy satanic of the ones that I picked. But I really loved like a lot of the imagery in that movie. I thought it was like really beautifully shot, and yeah, it's definitely one of my favorites.
When you said, I'm sorry about this. When you said witches, you started saying like it's the most witchy of the film. I started thinking of What We Do in the Shadows, the TV show, where it's like witches. Why? What's the problem with witches? They'll steal your semen. You don't want that. And there's like a whole episode about that. It's like I think it's the worst episode of the show, but it's also really funny. So it's just like
it's a little too real though, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like when I think of witches, I think of that specifically, and like what a weird episode that was. So yes, just to completely derail your thought process.
It's okay. I didn't realize the mom in that movie is the lady from Game of Thrones. I'm watching the trailer real quick because I forgot how chilling this one is. The mom in the movie is the lady in Game of Thrones where she like breastfeeds her son to like 18 or something like that.
That lady, yeah.
Yeah, that lady.
Oh yeah.
So,
Yeah, there's a lot of like
isn't this one of the
really...
first A24 films? I don't know why I said A24. It's A24. I'm dumb. But it was it's like really one of the like early like, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that's the one that put them on the map.
Yeah.
Yeah, Robert Eggers, he also did The Lighthouse, which is another A24. Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of like really sad moments in that one as well, where it's, you know, like the baby and the little brother's asking like, will he go to heaven because he wasn't baptized? And it's like only God knows. And then like even when the kid dies, it's like, was he saved? I don't know. I hope so, because he's like one of the only people in that family that wasn't hardcore committing sin the whole time. But you know, that's for God to decide, I guess. But yeah, this one's very.
And Black Phillip, you can't forget Black Phillip. He's the best character.
Phillip,
literally the goat.
So
the goat of that movie.
He is the goat.
Like, some of the imagery with that stuff is so cool. Like that movie is. I haven't seen it in a really long time, and I would definitely love to revisit it. But like, it's just got some beautiful imagery and beautifully spooky. Like, it's a lot of the shots look like they should just be paintings. And I think that's probably why you know it's A24. You know, like most of that, their films are based around shots. You know,
yeah, just looking very, very pretty.
Yeah, and she's great.
Anya Taylor-Joy.
Yeah, this is one of her like big like breakthroughs too. And she's great because she just, you don't know what's going on in her brain. Like the entire movie, you're just not sure what's going on. And I think that's why she's great, because she hides what she's feeling, but she's still acting. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like she's doing a great job of not revealing what the character is thinking without ruining the story. You know, like it's not like you're watching someone like blank on screen, but she's great. I forgot how much I like this movie.
Yeah, I haven't seen it in a while. I remember like specific moments of it, but I also remember not knowing what the dad was saying for most of the film.
Yeah, he's got a really thick accent.
Yeah, his accent is super, super thick. Well, I don't watch movies with subtitles typically. That one I would recommend watching with subtitles.
Yeah.
But it's really interesting. It's not one of my favorite movies, but it definitely is one of those films where I watched and I was like, I'm gonna have to watch this again someday. It's sitting on my shelf waiting for me to rewatch it because it's fascinating to me. I really like the ending too. I think the ending is awesome.
Yeah, the ending has a great moment.
So yeah, I think The Witch is a little more straightforward as far as like your satanic occult movies go, and it's very biblical in a lot of its things with like, only women being able to join Black Phillip and like, all that. But I still think it's gorgeous. And I'm glad it put A24 on the map because I'm a big fan of them in general. And my last movie, sad occult creepy satanic movies, is Hereditary. um I absolutely loved Hereditary, and I haven't watched it since because it freaked me out so much. I actually watched a recap video just to like get ready for the episode because I couldn't rewatch that movie because I still think about how much it scarred me when I saw it. But I do like how it touches on loneliness in the brother. And like there's a lot of like juxtaposition of like starting the movie with a funeral and like how kind of little emotion there is between the characters because it's like, oh, it's grandma, it's her time anyway. And then like the daughter's funeral and how like absolutely devastating all of that was, and like the contrast of those two like events, and then just like the isolation that follows with the son, and that like, even like the mom being like, I can't take that away from you. Like you're always going to hold that, and like just that heaviness of it, and just how his family like slowly drifts away from him because like they just don't know how to handle, like it's like, yeah, we understand that this wasn't on purpose, but it is your fault. Like you were the one that was there. You were the one that could have, kept her safe, and you didn't. And like just it also like the satanic cult part of it just takes you on such a trip. Like it's insane where it's like it was grandma the whole time. She was planning all of this. She knew she had to die, and that she knew that the granddaughter had to die, and that they needed like a male heir for Satan to like, be it so that he can like be the king of like this cult. Like it's just like that very real look at like a family falling apart from such a tragic event, and like the very on the noseness of their lives being watched, how she like builds these like scenes and dollhouses, and like, the manipulation of that, and then like this crazy insane cult stuff that's happening on the other side.
Yeah, that it's interesting because like of all, it's like the first movie I've ever seen that was a horror film in the sense of like the horror of being in a family in crisis. Like that is such an interesting perspective to have to create a horror movie from, because it's normally about some, you know, really big event or some kind of like either some really big event where everybody's in trouble or some small thing or like something is following you around in a sense. But that one's all about like the people who kind of like love you and are around you. They don't know what to do with you anymore, and you don't know how to be around them anymore. Like it's a really tragic film. So I guess to go well with your sad films list, it is very
Yeah.
tragic, and I don't know. I remember watching it just being like, "Oh my god, this is so good and so different than what I'm used to." Um, and it's like the way the movie was marketed too. You had no idea that that's what the film was about at all. There was no indication that it was going to be like a family horror, like, you know, come to Jesus or come to Satan really moment kind of thing. It
Yeah.
was, you just assumed it would be like, you know, creepy little kid doing creepy kid shit or whatever.
Yeah, especially since like a lot of the trailers and stuff followed her, and she dies in the first 30 minutes of a 2-hour
Yeah, you
film.
don't realize it's about Alex Wolff.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I love him as an actor. Oh
Yeah,
my
he's
gosh.
great.
I'm
He
so
was so good in
excited
that.
to
He's so
keep
good in
seeing
general.
him go, like, you know, because it's he took his time out of Hollywood because, you know, Naked Brothers Band didn't do too well.
Naked Brothers Band.
And I hope you guys, I know I think about that every time I see him on screen, and every time, because I listen to his music now. Him and his brother still do music together.
Really?
And yeah, they're actually really good. So definitely, they're not under Naked Brothers Band anymore. They're just Nat and Alex Wolf, but still really good. But yeah, I agree. It was very a MacGuffin, you know, like Super Psycho. They advertised it with, you know, this creepy little girl, and you know, the girl's not in the movie, but 30 minutes, you know.
Yeah.
That one's an interesting one because what stands out, and because I saw the movie twice in theaters and I had bad experience both times, so don't get me started on that. But Toni Collette in that movie I'm still mad that she didn't get an Oscar nomination. Not that I hold Oscars too much, you know, high standards for horror films, because I don't think horror films get their day in court with Oscars. Even though they have in the last recent years with Jordan Peele. So don't get me, I'm sorry, you know, but yes. But Toni Collette was fire in that film. Like the epitome of crazy mother dealing with a crazy situation. The scenes at the family table give me, I like to say like that, like idea of suspense, and like that's what makes a horror film. That's traumatic for me. Like the family dinner scenes are traumatic because, like, you know, I can just picture myself at that dinner table and being utterly terrified of my mother. Like, you know, not that my mother was ever, no, hold on, because she listens to this podcast. Not that I would ever compare you to that mother in that movie. I'm just saying I could put myself into that table and being absolutely terrified. Like, she is a gem, and I love watching Toni Collette and anything she does, but her in Hereditary is so good.
There's also just
perfect.
there's just some like genuinely terrifying like scenes in that too, and just terrifying imagery of like, you know, like her climbing on the ceiling and like just people banging their heads against
when
like
she turns around and the husband's
like,
on fire.
It's horrific. It is horrific, but I feel like the scene that always,
the head scene, scene, and then you like that moment is like utterly like,
that is, Alex Wolff did that. Oh my god, like the way it hangs on it for way too long, but you would like, that is like the realest that I feel like that could have felt just watching it on screen. Like I was like holding my breath, like I was like shaking, and that's like the part of the movie that I always like think back on, is him just like, you know, his eyes, and then like trying to dart to like the rear view camera or the rear view mirror, and like, you know, chickening out because he doesn't want to see what happened even though he knows what happened. Like that whole scene is just like, it's heartbreaking, it's terrifying, it's so uneasy, and it's like, it's the reason that I'm not ready to watch it again yet.
And don't drive under the influence. That's the other tale from there. There you go.
Yes, please don't get your sister beheaded.
Don't let her eat nuts if she's allergic to nuts.
Oh my god, like, yes, please.
It's in the rule
whole
book. Come
scene,
on,
it's
don't
like,
do that.
And you're also like, she was dead anyway. There was no way that he was getting to a hospital on time to save her from.
Why didn't she have her EpiPen either? She should have had her EpiPen. Everybody with a nut allergy has an EpiPen on them. That was stupid on her part.
It's like just bad all around. Come on, guys, get it together.
Oh my gosh,
it had.
You got yourself beheaded.
It had to happen. It was Satan. It was all Satan's fault because it had to happen so that he could be the king of the cult.
Yeah,
isn't it Payman? Payman.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
AIMON or something like that.
Yeah, Payman.
Yeah. Oh, that one's good. I'm definitely gonna have to revisit that one at home, not in a movie theater, because I just can't. I can't in the movie theaters.
And that little bit of hope when she like meets that person who like can help her talk to people that are on like the other side, and you're like, oh, this is where this movie's going, and then it still took another left turn.
Nope, doesn't go that way. That's what I like about that film, is it takes turns constantly. Like you think it's gonna be a ghost movie, then it's a cult, like it just constantly, like you're like, oh, it's going to be a family drama, then it's going to be a ghost movie, then it's going to be a cult movie, and then you're like, oh, it's a cult movie, like a real, like it's not just like like Children of the Corn cult movie. It's a cult movie.
It's like grandma's decaying body from the attic is now bowing to payment.
Yeah. So cool. I love that one. That's another one with like the imagery and stuff like that. Like A24 and Ari Aster do a great job with their imagery, and I think it's another reason why that one hangs for me is that like I just can picture moments and scenes and shots from the film that like have no words or dialogue or anything like that, but like her playing with the bird, just oh. All righty. Well, that's your top 3 of your satanic, occult, isolation, and loneliness subgenre, which is a mouthful to say. Darrell, do we want to jump into yours or you want to jump into mine?
I can jump into mine.
Okay.
It just, I don't know, it's just interesting because it's like we just talked about all that and we're talking about something totally different in a sense, which is the awesome thing about horror films is that it's like there's so much different stuff. So my subgenre of choice is body horror films, which I think is interesting because I don't know. I don't think people think about body horror a lot as a film unless they're thinking of like a Saw movie or something, which kind of counts, but kind of doesn't. A lot of horror movies have elements of body horror, but not a whole lot of films like delve super deeply into it. So, read y'all a definition from filmtheory.org. Body horror is generally demonstrations of a graphic destroying and mutilation of the physical human body. These ventures are represented with terminal illnesses, decomposition, parasite infestation on the body host, and body mutation. Body horror has become so globally renowned because of its cinematic endeavors. They aim to entertain film viewers in shocking approaches all over the world has become such a victorious phenomenon. That last sentence was kind of weird, but thank you for adding Human Centipede to the list. Whoever just added that, looking at the Google Doc and just randomly Human Centipede just shows up on the list, which I've never actually seen. And of all the body horror films, I actually kind of don't want to see that one, but I'm also really interested.
It's really not that bad. The first one is not okay.
I mean, I don't know. I haven't seen it yet.
Because just like
it's just
a
bad movie. It's just a bad movie.
See, that's the thing. Is like I don't want to watch it. It's just a bad movie overall.
Yeah, but I don't know. I feel like the first one is at least. You can watch the first one. You don't have to watch any of the other ones.
Okay.
It's one of those ones you have to experience, like Teeth.
Oh no, Teeth.
See, Teeth is another one on my list that I've never seen Teeth, but it's on my list of ones I want to watch. I want to watch that forever. I don't even
like the physical form of teeth. Like I don't like actual teeth. I don't like the movie.
I don't even like saying the word teeth.
No, I don't. Oh my gosh.
But so yeah, I've always, not always, but like ever since I kind of got into horror films, body horror is kind of the stuff that I got the most interested in for some reason. And like it's even like in like the video games I like, body horror has always been the most interesting. So like, and this carries over. I'm only saying this because it carries over into one of the movies. Is that one of my favorite video games is Dead Space. I love the Dead Space games because basically they're games about like a guy on a spaceship having to kill monsters that are just reanimated corpses that now have basically knives for hands and are running around trying to murder you. They have just, it's really cool because it's like they're human bodies that have now mutated so much they've become some completely different form that are designed only for killing like other humans. Like that's literally the whole purpose, is that they are designed now to kill. And I think that it's just really interesting. And they made a couple of movies based off of the games, Dead Space Downfall and Dead Space Aftermath. So that's the reason why I'm bringing up the game, because their movie is related to it. So it's not a video game podcast, even though I could talk about this game forever because I love these games.
We did talk about video games to movies.
We did. That's right. We did. So there we go. Now I can talk about whatever I want. Next up is comic books. So
there you go.
But yeah, so like one of my favorites that is not Dead Space related and that many people have actually seen is John Carpenter's The Thing from 1982. So, and that movie is basically about a bunch of guys at an Antarctic, I guess, I don't know, I guess that's some kind of scientific Antarctic base. They're doing whatever it is they do at those bases. It doesn't matter. They never explain what they're doing. And
Research of some kind.
research, of course,
Various
just research of something. And they encounter an alien life form that basically takes the form of other people. And it's one of the best examples of like awesome practical visual effects, because the monster can take the form of any living creature, but it's not like it can't do it immediately. So it's not like it's not like some amorphous blob that just turns into a person. It like has to grab them physically with like these disgusting tendrils, like yank the body towards, and then kind of like has to be all over the all over the body in order to slowly like take over its characteristics and change into it. And so you have characters who are coming in and they're like, there's an interesting dog that we have now all of a sudden. Let's go put the dog in the pen with the other dogs. It's fine. Goes and checks on the dogs 20 minutes later, and they're just this like gross little dog monster face thing popping out of the ground of like these tentacles. It's like melting the other dogs in the room. It's like the grossest, most disgusting thing, but also it's like super cool to me because I love seeing how creative like visual effects artists get when they make that kind of stuff. Like seeing those kinds of monsters is super, super cool to me. And I think that's one reason why body horror is always fascinating me, is because it's like, it's one thing to make a monster. It's another thing to make a monster out of like the human form twisted and broken down and, turned into something completely different that it was never meant to be. And that happens throughout the movie. There's this one great scene where a guy is like, seemingly has like a heart attack. It's like, oh my god, get the defibrillator. Gets the defibrillator and like pushes on his chest a couple times, and then his hands go through the guy's chest, and then these teeth just like clamp over the guy's arms. And he's like, oh my god, my arms. And it gets like ripped off. He falls over, and then the body just like basically explodes into like another head popping out of the chest, just like spraying crap all over the place. It's like, it's glorious. It's disgusting, but it's glorious, and I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
So
I think it's great too that like 4 of the 6 movies that you put are from the 80s, because like that is like the epitome of amazing practical effects. So like doing all of this practically is like what makes these body horror movies like so good and so iconic. Like
yeah,
everyone knows John Carpenter's The Thing, and like everyone has seen at least like screen grabs of like those creatures and monsters, because like wow, that makeup.
yeah, it's incredible, and it is weird. It's funny because like on my list, I put like 6 movies, and 4 of them from the 80s, and the other 2 are the 2 Dead Space movies, which are both from the 2000s. They're both animated films, not even live action films. So it's a little different. But for me, I just love seeing practical effects, and especially practical monster effects that actually look really convincing. And so like a couple other movies I have are like Reanimator, which I just rewatched for the first time in like 6 or 7 years. Where basically a guy is like, hey, guess what? I can bring people back to the dead. He's like a mad scientist at a college. He's like, let me bring people back to the dead. Everyone's like, no, stop doing that. Why are you trying to do that? And so he like, so these human bodies in the morgue, he's a medical student. He's like, you know what? I'm just going to inject it with this stuff and see what happens. Oh, look at that. It came to life. Oh my God, it killed somebody. I'm going to bring them back to life too and see what happens. And like the most iconic part of the movie is that one character gets beheaded, and he's like, I'm gonna bring back the head, I'm gonna bring back the body and just see what happens. And that's like kind of where the climax of the film comes in. But it's like it's really cool just seeing this guy just walking around holding his head, just being like, I need to finish my evil plan real quick, but my head is right here. So I don't know. It's like it's probably the least body horror of all the ones I'm going to mention, but I just had to because it's really good. It's directed by Stuart Gordon, who apparently did like exclusively theater before he did this movie, which is so funny because it's just like I would not have expected a theatrical director to do a disgusting horror film like this. But I mean, he did. So yeah, like those kind of movies, like The Thing, Reanimator, The Fly, those are all excellent films that just showcase like really, really, really good visual practical effects where you just see monsters. Because I mean, in The Fly, you have Jeff Goldblum literally turning into a fly, basically, because he gets
So
into
good.
a teleporter
good.
pod and with a fly on accident, and he's like, this is weird. I'm changing. I'm just look at that. Body parts just falling off. Just hairs growing out of my body. Okay, this is weird. And yep, now my face is just melting off, and my girlfriend is kind of upset about this. Don't know why. And it's like it's one of those films where like you're seeing the transformation happening over time, and then you get to the end and you see the full thing happen, like his entire body disintegrates in this big giant like weird, like it's not even look like a fly, it looks more like a praying mantis mixed with a fly.
Yeah.
Like appears out of his body, and it's gross, but it's really cool. And there are lots of movies like this. There are lots of movies that have aspects of body horror in them that I wouldn't, they're in the genre but not really in the genre. Like Alien is a good one. I see that someone had added Alien onto my list.
That was
And
me.
yeah.
I was going, does Alien count as body horror? I was wondering, I've never thought of that as body horror.
That's the thing, is that like when you look up body horror on like Wikipedia, it has a long list of basically any movie that has any element of body horror in it, and Alien is on it, but really it's only, the chest burster scene, obviously, or like in like Aliens when they're like cocooned, basically, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And there are lots of movies that have those elements in it, and I think they're really cool, but I wouldn't call it like a body horror movie officially. Like Akira has like an awesome body horror moments like near the end of the film, but that's not really the point of the film. Or Alien or Evil Dead, they all have moments where like body parts get twisted and stuff.
I have one that I want to put it in because I know at least you and I have watched it, but I don't want to. I'm gonna just keep quiet because Sarah hasn't seen it yet, and it just came out, so I'll shut up.
Okay.
Oh, is it body horror? Is that what you're saying?
I feel like it's gonna be body horror, yeah.
So. Well, I mentioned earlier, and Darrell hasn't seen Tusk.
Yeah, I have not seen Tusk,
some straight
which
body
I really
horror.
want to see.
That is straight body horror.
Very uncomfortable, but I do recommend watching it. It made me so incredibly uncomfortable, and you should totally watch it.
Yeah, I love that. I love feeling like uncomfortable when I see those movies, because it's like what if my hand just exploded or something like that? That'd be terrible. Because then I think of like another movie is like Tetsuo the Iron Man. It's like a Japanese, the most low budget films I've ever seen. I feel like it's like black and white. You can barely tell what's happening, but the visual effects are the practical effects are pretty impressive, because you can tell this one like guy which is really passionate about this disgusting movie, where he's like, basically he's like, this guy gets run over by a car and left for dead, but he survives the accident, and he tells the guy, basically he's like, you know what, I'm going to turn you into a robot over time. And by robot I mean he's called like the metal fetishist, so he just like puts like pieces of metal in his body all day. So he's like, I'm going to infect you with this thing, and you're going to start like growing metal out of your body. And it's like he's just like falling apart. He's like with his girlfriend, and his like penis are just like a metal like machine drill thing, and she's like, please stop trying to kill me with your actual drill dick and stuff like that. It's really weird. It's super
love
weird.
Horror movies, man.
Yeah, of all the movies I mentioned, that one is one that is not for most people, but I really like it because it's so weird. I saw it for the first time like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I was like, yeah, this is great. I don't know why this exists, but I love it. Like, he's just turning into just a blob of man and machine, and again his like drill dick is just like spinning around, hanging out. He's just like, why are you doing this to me? Because you hit me with your car. Also, the guy can like run really fast for some reason. He's got like freaking jets coming out of his feet or something, and it's wonderful. It's so it's so dumb and so ridiculous looking. I love it.
That's wild.
But I mean, that's the thing. Like body horror is fun for me because it's like you just twist the body in a weird way, and you can either be something really disgusting or really funny. Like Slither, James Gunn's one of his earliest films is a body horror film, but it's like a comedy.
Mhm.
And that's a good example of like you can mess up the human body in a fun way that doesn't feel weird. Well, it feels weird, but doesn't feel like off-putting, I guess, which is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot you can do with the genre. I don't know. It fascinates me. So yeah,
Did
I know I
you
just talked a lot about that.
did you see the prequel to The Thing?
I never saw the prequel, mainly because I heard that the practical effects were taken out in post, which I was like, no, I need to see like the real thing. I don't know, I'm curious
It's
that
weird.
way.
I feel like it was like marketed so badly. Like it's called The Thing with like the new date. Like it's like, but it is very much a prequel. Like the movie ends where the thing picks up with the dog running out.
Yeah.
And I will say the only like really fun part about that movie is that like when in The Thing they go and like they find the other research center and like you see how like messed up it is, like it's like seeing basically what's about to happen to them, like
Mm-hmm.
them kind of remaking all of that, like seeing the end of what all happened in like The Thing and then like watching them make it in the prequel. That was like the fun bit of it, was like the
Okay.
attention to detail of like creating those scenes that ended with that aftermath of the other research center was kind of entertaining. But yeah, it's all right.
Do you see that in other genres? Because I'm thinking about it, and like I was gonna talk about how like Insidious 2 kind of like slots perfectly into Insidious 1. And I was trying to think about how does another genre do that? Does like another genre go, oh, we're gonna make a sequel, but like we're gonna tell you how this all happened, like all the crazy crap that happened in the first one, we're gonna tell you how it happened because that's what we do in horror apparently. But like
Hmm.
like The Thing, because I remember
Another.
watching that with you, the prequel, and I remember going, oh, that was cool. Like that was a cool, like, you know, it slides kind of perfectly right in. And I'm trying to think of like other movies that do that aside from Insidious and Insidious 2.
Yeah. I mean, it is interesting because horror does like to do that a lot. It likes to. It's weird because it's kind of one of the failings of like a lot of sequels or prequels is when they try to explain stuff in a
Yeah,
horror
like
thing in a horror film, because it's like if you explain it too much then it stops being interesting because
we
like
didn't want the answer.
yeah, the
Mhm.
unknown was the cool part about it. Like I don't need to know what happened to the people, to the Norwegians in at the opening of the thing. It's like I saw what happened. I don't need to know how we got there. It's fine. I'm cool. They're dead now. It doesn't matter. I'm here for Kurt Russell and I forgot his name. The black guy in that movie. Well, there are two black guys in that movie. Keith David. Keith David. Sorry.
Mm.
Yeah, I just want to know what happens to them. I don't care about the rest of the characters. But yeah, I don't know. There are other. I'm trying to think what other ones do that.
So many horror movies like leave on cliffhangers that
Hmm.
don't necessarily need to be or are always answered, but a lot of horror movies are like, it's like, okay, we're at the end of the movie, and then all of a sudden, like, their eyes open, and you're like, oh shit, they're alive, and like, what's gonna
Hmm.
happen? And like, sometimes that's left to the unknown and for you to like, whatever. But it's also like, I feel like horror movies are almost always leaving the door open for a sequel because
Yeah. Right.
when one of them does well, it's like, we gotta hop on this.
Oh
Hmm.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's a cast crop because it does well with kids, and kids are gonna go see however many Saw films they make, or however many Halloweens they make, or
Final Destination.
Final
Hmm.
Destinations. It's kind of. I mean, I think what Halloween's on 5, 6, 7 or 8. I think
Just
8.
8.
I think I'm trying to do a real recount
Oh,
because there's 3 of the,
are we not counting any of the crossovers with
and then there's a remake. because then
All the
yeah,
other.
then there's
like-
the remake, and then there's the sequel to the original, and then there's a sequel to that sequel.
Yeah. So
I love horror is like the only genre you can be like, no. The other 3 movies didn't happen.
yeah.
Ignore those.
I mean, even like Candyman just did that.
Yeah,
Candyman was like, you know that new Candyman movie? This is great. You know, ignore the sequels; they don't matter. Just the
No.
first one, and this
Yep,
one
just
also
the
named
first one.
Candyman.
Yes.
So
I also loved that. Sarah, did you see Candyman?
No.
Never mind. Have you seen the original Candyman?
No.
we're
Okay,
gonna have
so
to have a Candyman
here's
night.
the thing. Because so I saw it with my mom, my sister, and my husband has watched Candyman with me, and then my mom and sister have not seen Candyman, and I was under the impression that you didn't have to see the original Candyman, so I was like, oh yeah, you can see it. And yes, that's true, you don't have to have seen the original because they do a nice graceful 4-minute recap of the first movie.
They do.
Not in the beginning of the movie, it's actually cleverly written. You know,
Mm.
like the character stumbles upon the characters in the first movies, you know, whatever. And but there is a really nice bow tie, like, you know, wrapped in a beautiful present moment at the end of the film that is not appreciated if you don't know who it is.
Okay, so I should watch the original.
Yes.
Yes,
Well,
you should.
see, I'm glad I know that now, and I'm glad I didn't just run and see Candyman.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Hurricane
you'd
Ida.
enjoy the movie. You enjoy the movie a lot anyway, but definitely watch the original.
Because
Okay.
my mom fell asleep in the last 5 minutes of the movie, guys.
Oh.
Last 5 minutes of the movie are the most meaningful moments of that movie, and she slept through it all. I'm calling you out, mother. I'm
At
sorry.
the theater?
Yes.
I could never
She's
fall asleep in a theater.
notorious. I love my mother. She's notorious of falling asleep at movie theaters. You'll just hear her snoring next to you, and you're like, really?
That's Matt. That's my husband, Matt, as well.
Oh my
I can't do
goodness.
that.
Candyman's kind of body horror. It has
Yeah, it has some elements,
an element of body horror.
Yeah, especially the
Couple
first
element.
one.
Yeah.
So, but that's the thing, is that lots of horror movies have some element of body horror. 'Cause almost every horror movie has either like some violent act or some mutilation. But you know, the difference between like Candyman and The Thing is that the whole point of the movie is that it's like, yeah, we're just gonna wreck this body. We're just gonna do like the worst things to it. But yeah, it's a fun genre. You should check it out. Just gave you 6 movies you should watch. Dead Space, Aftermath, Dead Space, down for all the other 2 movies I didn't really talk about much. But go check them out if you like the games.
I just remembered that, like, when I rewatched The Thing, I was waiting for a moment to happen that never happened, and I'm realizing that it happened in the prequel, and I thought it was so smart that, like, the way that they were trying to see if the thing had taken over someone is because it can't replicate like fake things. So I'd be easy if I didn't have my nose ring anymore. You'd be like, oh shit, Sarah's, that's not Sarah. But what they did in the prequel was they like went into people's mouths and they were checking for like silver crowns and stuff.
Oh, okay.
And fillings. Which
But
was really interesting.
I do wonder though about because in the movie they're like, I think it like rips off your clothes in order to like change you. So I'm just like, so it just goes and puts his clothes back on. Okay. It's just interesting to me that it's like it has
aliens
the
like better get dressed.
Yeah, better get dressed. I need to look presentable before I murder everybody in this room. I have standards.
PG-13, guys.
Yeah, PG-13.
Just a bunch of naked guys walking around in the Arctic.
I mean, that's basically the end of Reanimator, honestly. Just a bunch of naked guys just walking around in a doctor's office. Very common body horror, just naked people in general. You will find that a lot.
My camera died.
It's just going to be audio for you from now on?
Yeah, because I don't have anything to replace it, so.
Okay.
Just throw up a nice picture of me or something like that.
What of a slideshow of you?
So I mean, it comes down to me, and I'm looking at my list going, this is not. the 5 that I highlighted are not my top 5 favorite horror films. Like I'm like looking at it and I'm like, yeah, I mean, like, yeah. I don't know what to do about that. So I feel weird now that I don't have a camera. My favorite horror genre, and I guess this is true, is psychological horror. And I'm like going, yeah, it would have either been psychological horror or paranormal horror. I feel like, but I feel like those go hand in hand most of the time. Like you can't have paranormal without psychological because there's no, like, a lot of paranormal stuff is what am I seeing is really there kind of thing. And No Film School says psychological horror films and TV shows are an assault on our hearts and minds, which is a great way of putting that. This subgenre of horror purposefully messes with what's inside us, making us feel uneasy and outside of the norm. But there's so much more to this genre than just upsetting people. These kinds of movies and TV shows are about human nature. Often they tackle social problems and societal negligence. Psychological scary movies can be deep, they can be profound, and they have a lot more to say. I guess, yeah. Okay. So the films that I highlighted for this genre are interesting because, like, I would never have said this film is one of my favorite horror films. But yeah, I'm going to start with Rosemary's Baby, which again, I wouldn't put on my top 10, but I think it deserves to be on a top number because I definitely had a fascination with Rosemary's Baby for a while. Like, I think I went through like a year of college where like I watched it like every month because I thought it was so interesting. And I trying to explain that one. It's like a new couple moves into an apartment and she is pregnant and it follows her pregnancy and she just has a lot of like, it's all about the eerie. It's all about this like uncertainty. Has anybody seen Rosemary's Baby?
Yeah.
Okay.
I haven't.
Okay.
There's probably why it wasn't on my list. It might have been if I'd seen it.
It would have definitely been on your list.
So she like goes back and forth between like, are her neighbors being weird or are they just overly friendly and old people? And then there's like a death in her apartment complex and her husband's being weird. And it's all these like pregnancy tension and they're all kind of just like writing it off like, oh, she's got pregnancy brain. She's fine, like whatever. And then she starts feeling weird and there's just all sorts of like different like tension moments and like I'm gonna ruin the movie for you, Sarah, because it's been out
That's
since
fine.
the 70s.
It's my fault.
It boils down to the old people are part of a cult who have made a deal with the devil, and her husband becomes a part of that cult and makes a deal with the devil so that he can be a famous actor. And the deal is that they get the baby. So he basically like sells his firstborn to the devil. Yeah,
classic.
Yeah, or
Satan. Maybe Rumpelstiltskin is just Satan.
Maybe that's it.
Solved.
Metaphor. But like the first half of like, not even half, a good majority of that film, you're agreeing with everybody else. Like, oh, it's all in her head. Like nothing's wrong. Like everything's going to be okay. It's, and then you're like, oh, there's something weird. Like this lady's like way too friendly and not even friendly, like weird. Like just walks into her apartment. Like that's a red flag for me. Like no one ever walk into my house uninvited. You don't open the door and just walk right in. No. You wait until I say, oh, you can come in. Like there's just a lot of like things. And like the old people, I think it's like they're the Castavets. I think that's like what they go by. I can be wrong, but
I think that is the name, like the Castavets, Castavettis.
Yeah, or something like that. They're just so great because they could have just been senile old people that live in an apartment complex and they just want to hang out with the young lady who's, they wanted a child and they never got a child, like that kind of thing. It's, and it just works so well because the whole time your brain's trying to figure out what's going on. Like you're trying to like figure it out. And I think I like movies like that. Like I like when my brain is constantly trying to go through different ways the movie's gonna go. And yeah, that one's definitely on my top favorite. Darrell, do you like that one? I don't know.
No, actually, I love the ending of Rosemary's Baby. I do not like the rest of the movie. I liked it when I was like, oh, now I see what was happening the entire time.
See, like, I'm the other way around. I like all the lead up to it, and I don't.
Oh, okay.
Like the ending to me was not, felt rushed.
Okay, I like the ending. It is super rushed at the end, but I liked it because I was like,
she finds out and like it just like spirals.
Yeah, I was like, I see what they did to me. Basically, I understand what they did. But it was one of those movies where I was like, man, this is a long movie. It's just
a really long movie.
It takes a while.
And you hear the theme through the whole movie. There's no other music. It's just that little like, I can't even do it. And I was gonna play it at my wedding.
Just an endless droning piece of music. Honestly, I think I may have done you a favor. We have done you a favor, Sarah, by telling you how it ends. Because now that you know what to expect,
maybe you'll watch it.
The way I was for a while.
Because it is a satanic cult, like
it's worth a watch. Definitely.
And it is all about like loneliness. Like it's about like basically like her husband's like a doting husband, and then as soon as she gets pregnant, he becomes like a famous commercial actor or whatever. And so he's never home. And so it becomes like, well, now I'm doing all this on my own kind of thing. So it's an interesting take on loneliness and also like trying to be a responsible adult. Like there's just like this great moment where she's just lining her like, closet, shelves with, like the paper that you put in your drawers. I don't know what, and I don't know why, but like to me, that's such like an adult thing to do. And I'm like, I wouldn't be doing that. I'd be watching TV. No, like I don't know. But
we didn't have YouTube back then, so
no, I guess not.
They had to find other ways to entertain themselves.
So that one is an interesting one, and I definitely wouldn't put it in my top 10, but it's one of my favorites in this subgenre. Another one, a big one that really I want to mention it. It's What Lies Beneath, but I'm not going to go into it because I have a feeling neither of you guys have seen it. But it's Harrison Ford and Michelle Pfeiffer, and that's all I'm going to tell you.
Oh my God, that's right. I literally picked that up from the library with the intention of watching it because I'd watched the video about Robert Zemeckis and they talked about the movie. This was like 3 weeks ago, but instead I watched Death Becomes Her because it was also Robert Zemeckis, and it was actually really entertaining.
Okay, but I'm very disappointed.
Sorry, brief tangent. I was just like, why does
Harrison
that name sound
Ford
familiar?
is
That's why.
So good in this movie. It's one of those like, I don't know what's going on. There's like her narrative, his narrative, your narrative, and you're like, I don't know what's going on, what's going to happen. And The Uninvited is another good one. I just realized that's a good one. That's got the girl from Sucker Punch, and the series of unfortunate events, and I can't think of her name.
What happened to her?
I don't know. She did Sucker Punch, and that was about it. I can't remember. I think she fell off basically.
Wow, I never tried this.
Whoa, what are you saying? Sorry, what are you saying?
Right?
You're a zombie.
Yeah, sorry. It was really extreme. I was like, whoa, what is she saying?
Yes, she was. She was Violet Baudelaire in the Jim Carrey version. So
let's see what happened to this person. Let me see. Go back to IMDb.
I can't even remember her name. I feel bad. It's like
I don't know if I'm a robot, but
you're a robot.
You are.
Sucker Punch was one of my guilty pleasures in high school. I loved that movie. It's so bad.
Emily Browning. That's her
Emily
name.
Browning. There you go.
She's on American Gods, and that's about it.
Interesting.
Now.
But yeah,
All right,
so
I still have the dates
Uninvited is
that.
another psychological horror one that I really like. Because that has a nice like what's really happening kind of thing. And I think that's got oh, Elizabeth Banks is in that movie, I believe.
Oh,
I
okay.
think it's Elizabeth Banks. I could be wrong. So yeah. But yeah, so I digress. Watch What Lies Beneath. I'm not going to tell you anything else about it because I really like, I don't know how to explain that psychological torture that I went through watching that film, but I remember going, huh, that was really good. And I really enjoyed that. So, one of my big ones is 1408. And I love a good Stephen King movie. Like, I love his books. Anything that man touches, I'll probably read, watch, don't care. But 1408 is also a John Cusack movie, and I have a really soft spot for John Cusack movies. So, but that movie, Samuel L. Jackson's in that one. It's that movie, I like it because it starts off in your head and you're like, and it's one of those movies that does those like, oh, we wake up and like you're not really sure if it was real or not and things like that. And it actually has two endings, and I don't know what differentiates between the two, because there's one ending that like it's all real and the other ending it's not all real, and it just depends on what DVD you buy. I don't really know
Oh, that's
how that works.
interesting.
I've definitely seen both endings, and I don't know what, I'm sure you could look it up, like what differentiates between the two. But
I'm a fan of the "it was all real" ending.
yes. And the moment when you hear her on the tape and the mom's like, oh my God, you aren't a crazy lunatic. Oh my God. Okay.
I've never seen this movie, so I'm just like watching you react. Like,
Yeah.
wow,
You've
this
never
is
seen 1408?
no.
It's
It's
got
on our
some.
list of movies to watch.
Okay. Well, then when you come back in town, we'll have to watch it, because one, I would love to rewatch it because Samuel L. Jackson in that movie is great, because he plays a character in the movie, which is like the manager of the hotel, and then he plays the hotel's version of the manager hotel. So like the hotel room's version of the manager in the hotel. Like, I don't know how
What?
to explain it, but he's like also the voice of the room. Like, I have no other way of explaining it but that.
Okay.
And oh, there's just some great moments, and
Mhm.
it has a way of picking apart the most mundane hotel room and every hotel room, like from the crappy paintings on the wall to the like stains on the carpet to the like, little chocolates that go on your, little thing, and like the clinical feeling of the bathroom and just everything. And it just picks apart John Cusack's character's brain, and it just pulls everything out. And it to me is so traumatic, because it takes someone who's already a beaten down man and somehow beats him down, but he has to build himself up to like get to the end of the movie, basically. And I just like I think John Cusack plays a great writer. I think he plays, he plays a writer in a bunch of his movies, but I think that character and the development that character has to go through is just heart-wrenching. And like, Sarah, the scene where he's in the air vent and you're like, oh, and then he's out, all the window scenes. It's just
Yes.
got great moments, and it's all psychological, because you're like not sure if it's all in his head or if he like, had a drug, or if he's sleeping and, taking a nap, or if it is all really happening, and the whole movie is just, oh. And then, there's like that, like, let you go and reel you back in, and
Yeah.
it's great. And then we'll watch it, Darrell, and I don't want to spoil any of the movie too much, because so
It is
good.
really good. And I also like, for Stephen King, his books are so much and so long, but because that's one of his short stories, that movie is so full and really does tell that story so well, because it like
Mm.
it was able to include most of it because it is
Mhm.
just a short story.
Yeah, it's part of like one of his like collection books. Like you
I
can
think
get
it's
it.
Everything is Eventual or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. And that one is just jam packed full of stuff, and it's got all sorts of different elements. It's got, you know, gore, it's got blood, it's got, you know, spooky ghosts, it's got, you know, death and despair, and it's just got everything in it. And then a little Samuel L. Jackson to sprinkle on top, you know?
And you know what 1 + 4 + 8 is, right?
What is it?
13.
Ooh.
Oh my god.
But like that's what's funny is so he reviews haunted various things, haunted hotel rooms, haunted, you know, mansions, haunted, like he does all the things, and he doesn't believe in it. So like the whole time he's going, oh, 1408 = 13, you know, like he calls it out immediately. And so that's why I like him, is because he's a believable skeptic. I think that's probably why, because that's going to be me. Like I'm going to be the same way. That's how I'm going to die in a horror film, is I'm not going to believe it's real because I'm going to call it all out. That's probably in my top 10. I will put 1408 in my top 10 because that one just hits home for me. I think I've watched that millions of times, and that's like I watched the, you know, commentary on, and I just, yeah. Another one I put into psychological horror, and I would put it in my top 10. Actually, the next two are in my top 10 are Sinister with Ethan Hawke. I really, really like that film. And it's so funny. I didn't like it the first time I saw it.
Really?
Yeah, you know, like when you get updates from your Facebook and it's like 10 years ago, you posted this.
Oh, yeah.
I apparently posted, saw Sinister. It was but now it's like in my top 10 films. Like I love that film, and I love the imagery of that. I love the little 8, you know, Super 8 films. I love everything about those. I think those are so great, and they're the horror in the movies. But like Ethan Hawke, again, it's a writer move thing. I must have a thing for writer movies because they're, you know, skeptics, but he is never a skeptic. He immediately thinks there's something going on in his house. And but to me it's the psychological torture of like, no one else believes me, and you're the audience believe him, but so you're also frustrated that no one else is believing him, and then as soon as everybody does, it's too late, kind of thing. Have you guys seen that one?
Yeah, we watched it together.
Oh, oops.
I think I also watched it with you, but it was like probably 5 years ago
Yeah, long
because
friendship.
we've been friends that long. Yeah.
Yeah, long friendship. Oh, it's hard. Yeah. We've watched a lot of drunk movie nights together. Darrell, honestly, we're getting up there. We're getting into the 2-year
We're
mark,
getting there.
Darrell.
We're getting there.
I'm proud of us.
Yeah.
I don't remember watching Sinister with you.
We watched it over. We watched it online. I think it was.
Oh,
was it us?
it was a
Me,
pandemic.
you, and Caitlin. We
It was a
watched it.
pandemic movie. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
We
So that's how
should
we
do
saw
those
it.
again. We haven't done those in a while.
We
do
should.
this. Now that we can see each other,
Yeah.
we should go back to watching movies online.
Well, hey, now I can come without driving 2 hours.
There you go. There
See,
you
why
go.
have we done that? Yeah, I just realized that.
Oh,
All right,
my
guys, we're
God.
watching What Lies Beneath.
Yes, please.
I want
Oh
to.
my
I
gosh,
really want
let's
to
do
watch
it. Let me see
The
if I
only
can
reason
find
why I
it
didn't
online.
watch it is I had to return it because I had to go on this trip, so I had to return it to the library. So
I love it.
soon.
Okay. But Sinister is one of those that like I can watch over and over again, and I just appreciate the cleverness of the script and the filmmaking, and I really like that one because I think it still scares me. I think that's the other one. Like I like when a film still gives me the goosebumps or still gives me, you know, the eeriness and like the jarringness of the Super 8 films still get me. You know, like and I mean technically this fits in a cult too because he's like a supernatural being, you know, Mr. Boogie, which till this day I still think that's a terrible name for a horror. That's why I don't think he caught on. But I mean, they made 3 of those movies, I think, or 2. But But yeah, I really like that one. I think Ethan Hawke is great in that one. And kid horror is always fun when a kid becomes possessed. I think that's not easy, but it's a really fun one. And it's classic, and it goes back to The Exorcist. You can't go wrong with throwing a creepy kid into the mix, and it adds the tension to the film. My last one is Blair Witch Project. And Sarah hasn't seen this. Darrell, have you seen it?
No, I haven't seen it, but I know how it ends. Everybody knows how it ends, so.
Sarah, do you know how it ends?
I don't remember, but I've been told.
Okay.
You can ruin it.
It's 1999, so I feel like it's
too late.
Been 22 years. Yeah.
It could drink.
Yeah. This is a film, and it's so funny because like I've seen it so many times, and like I've made my own version of a Blair Witch Project. I've done my own found footage horror film. I mean, that was probably my first film I ever made, was a movie called The Flying Dutchman, and it was with me and my friends, and we were just out in the woods on my friend's property, beating sticks against trees and trying to scare the crap out of each other, and that's it, and that's basically what this movie is. Obviously on a higher budget, not that much higher budget, but higher budget. But that movie, to this day, like I remember watching it for my thesis because it's female driven, and then I watched it recently, and it still gives me the goosebumps and creeps me out. Like watching her, and like it's a joke, like everybody's like, Josh, and you're still like crying out for like it's a joke now in our like horror circles that like she's hysterical and ridiculous, and you're kind of annoyed with her 2 minutes into the movie. Like she is the most unlikable character to watch go through torment, which is probably why people like it, because it's she's ridiculous. But I still get freaked out watching it. Like I still get the chills, and the like heebie-jeebies, and nothing happens in the movie. Like there's no blood, there's no gore. It's just her freaking out and her friends going missing on a freaking camping trip, and it's just the little sticks be coming together, and they're they're making little faces, and it's just and it's all psychological, because like I mean it ends with the camera falling. That's it. You don't know what happens, and then the idea that it was released on the actual idea that it was real, and that's all psychological, and you can go into that. But that's like I find the epitome of psychological horror. I'm sure we could go into different ones. Psycho technically counts, Get Out counts, and that's, while it's psychological, it's also social, commentary. I'm trying to think of other ones. We could get behind is psychological. The Shining is psychological. Anything that really delves into the idea of like someone's crazy, or are they not crazy? Is it real ghosts? We don't know, that kind of thing. So yeah,
I'm gonna. A good one to add to that list. I just realized, because I just watched it. The Orphanage kind of fits in that.
Mm-hmm.
I just watched it. It's the only reason why I'm thinking about it.
The Orphan fits into that. I don't know if anybody's seen The Orphan, but I'm going to keep my tongue shut because
I haven't seen Orphan yet. No,
okay, I'll shut up.
It.
But it's psychological horror. It's definitely one of those ones like, who do you believe? Like, do you believe your main character? Do you believe your side character? Do you believe like third wall? Like, what are you to like? That's one. I actually just sent that to someone to watch. So I'll have to get it back so we can watch Darrell.
Nice.
I remember that was my first rated R film that I actually ever got to go see.
Really?
Like, yeah, I snuck into it.
Nice.
Good. That's how it's supposed to be done.
But yeah, I think we've been talking for a really long time. I feel like I don't know how long we've been going. And I definitely could keep talking about all sorts of different movies, because like I was torn between psychological horror and slashers, because I love a good classic horror film, or I guess you could say monster horror film, because I feel like slashers could technically fall into that. But then we were talking about how we think, like, The Shining technically would be considered a slasher because at the end of the movie, he becomes
A slasher.
a slasher, But yeah. To wrap this up, sorry, Sarah's writing it on our Google Doc. Do we think any of our movies that we talked today should be on a bucket list?
The immortal question. Well, yeah. Okay, Sarah, let's start with your movies. Which ones do you think should be on your bucket list?
Ooh, okay.
I would put Hereditary at top.
Yeah, I think a Hereditary is definitely one that everyone should see. I also absolutely love The Witch, but if that's not your thing, it's not your thing. I I want to put Black Coat's Daughter on there because I think more people should see it, and I don't think a lot of people have, and I think it deserves a watch. It's really good if you like any kind of like culty, Satan-y, slow burn, or isolation film. Like it's really beautiful. It does a good job.
Okay.
What about you, Darrell?
Let's see. Well, on my list, I would definitely say that The Thing and The Fly are definitely must watch. You got to see them before you die. I think also Reanimator, just because Reanimator is just really, really fun to watch because it's just so. It's just like it's so obvious that what the character are doing is a bad idea, and everyone's like, "This is a bad idea," and you're like, "You're right, it is a bad idea. We're gonna do it anyway." So it's really fun. Tetsuo the Iron Man, it's not for everyone. It really isn't. It is low budget. It's gross. It's a hard one to like. So it's okay. And the two Dead Space movies, I enjoy them a lot because I like the games. So I will give you a game recommendation. Game to play before you die is Dead Space 1 and Dead Space 2 because they're awesome. It's like Alien and Aliens. One is more horror, one is more actiony, and they're both awesome games. They're really, really fun. So yeah, I'm just gonna throw that out there. This is a popcorn bucket list as well as I don't know, something video game related clever thing bucket list. Also, go play Dead Space, please. They're remaking the first one soon.
Ooh,
so.
That'll be fun.
Yeah, it'll look beautiful on a PS5 in like 2 years. So
yeah, in 2 years,
You can
2 or 3
get
years.
one.
Yeah. So what about you?
Stress. Because I definitely listed 3 of those were like already bucket list items. I feel like at least Blair Witch Project and Rosemary's Baby are already going to be on the bucket list that people tell you to watch. So we don't need to have to tell you that. So if you want to put that on our bucket list, I think that's a classic. I think out of mind though, I'm gonna have to say 1408. I think 1408 is definitely on my bucket list. I don't want to declare What Lies Beneath is on our bucket list because I'm the only one who has seen it. So I will wait until the 3 of us have all seen it, and then we can declare together in unison if it's on our bucket list. And I feel like Sinister, yeah, I don't know. I feel like Sinister is a wishy-washy one. Like I feel like for new horror, it's definitely one that most people have seen. So if you haven't seen it, I still say you should see it. So yeah, just highlight all the ones I've talked about, Sarah. It's stupid for me to tell you not to.
I think Sinister should go on it. I like Sinister a lot, especially just because the atmosphere is great. If you want a movie that has a great atmosphere for a horror film, definitely,
dense.
Yeah.
And the one I didn't talk about is Goodnight Mommy, but that's an obscure like German film. It's not obscure. It's not obscure because I think I just watched a movie. Oh, the people who did The Lodge, the one I was talking about for your genre, Sarah, they did Goodnight Mommy. And it's I don't know if it's German or not, but I'm pretty sure I remember watching it with subtitles on. I watch most movies with subtitles on though, so that could mean anything. But it's like 2 twins and their mom has just had like a face surgery, and it's super like you're not really sure who to believe. Do you believe the kids? Do you believe the mom? That kind of thing. I would put that on a bucket list. I just didn't have time to talk about it because I wanted to talk about more important ones. So, and I also haven't seen it but once, and it was a really long time ago. So
Oh, they're remaking it. I was looking it up because I'd heard of it, but I didn't. I wanted to see the director. They're
They're
remaking it.
remaking Goodnight Mommy.
Yeah, with Naomi Watts.
Oh, I am mad.
That's interesting. 'Cause
It
that was
doesn't
not the
need a
first one that showed
remake.
up. Also, the movie's Austrian, apparently.
Austrian. Okay, I was close.
They do that with
Yeah.
every like foreign horror movie though, like Let Me In. Oh, that remake's so bad.
Yeah, they do that.
It doesn't need a remake though. Oh, I'm so mad.
Oh, I recognize this image of the first of the
Yeah,
model with
it's
the,
like the lady with the
with
plaster
the,
face.
with the
Yeah.
face. Okay, yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah. Psychological. All right. And so those are our films for your bucket list. If you guys have any recommendations for us, I am definitely try not to be a film bro about horror films because I, don't like to say that I haven't seen a certain horror film, but then I'm all for recommendations because I will admit I don't always have the time to keep up with the horror films. The last one I watched was *Malignant*, so there's that. And that's the last film I watched too, I think. And I have my opinions on that, so we don't need to talk about it yet because Sarah hasn't seen it. So
One day though, I
yes,
want to talk about *Malignant*.
yeah, so Sarah, that's your homework for next week so that we can finally talk about *Malignant*. Actually, it's not on HBO Max anymore, so you already missed.
Oh, it's not?
No,
Oh.
I think it left on yesterday. But my name is Gracie, and you can find me at GrayCeeMae. That's my name. Just look that up. That was awful. Start it over again.
Sorry, you were like singing it like on Sesame Street.
GRAY.
Sure, leave me alone. My life. My name is Gracie, and you just leave it at all. My name is Gracie, and you can find me at Gracie May with a Y and 3 E's on anywhere you see fit. Where can we find you, Darrell?
Find me at on Twitter at Darth Darrell. That's Darth as in Vader, Maul, Sidious, take your pick. Darrell, that's Darrell. I post occasionally, rarely, never, but scream at me there if you want to.
Sarah, what about you?
I am snotty_person on Twitter and snotty.person on Instagram. Both of those are snotty with an IE, not a Y.
And check us out, all of us together, not for the latest movie news because we're really bad about posting, but you could just give us a follow. That'd be really nice. Let us know that you like us at the Popcorn Bucket List on Instagram and at TPB_podcast on Twitter, or just find us on whatever social media you use, and tune in on our YouTube channel. At some point, you can see our beautiful faces. We're not really on a schedule anymore, but we'll be uploading the video about a week after the audio version airs. That kind of keeps us off of a time lock. But it was great to see y'all beautiful faces. I don't know if we have another October. We have another October podcast.
We're planning on talking about Halloween movies.
Yes, Halloween movies, which will be interesting because I don't know how many we can come up with. So we'll see. Aside from the actual Halloween movies.
But those don't count.
They're gonna have to count because there's some obscure ones that I don't think Halloween. You guys have.
Halloween.
There we go.
That one exists
all of us
after
picked the same
Halloween.
movie.
The first 4 minutes of the movie are on Halloween.
So it counts.
And technically, that's it. It's just the intro because it starts at the end of Halloween.
Yeah.
But it's great to see you guys, and I look forward to seeing you guys in about a week or 2 weeks. I don't know, whenever we decide to do this again. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.